On his return to action from injury, thanks a reason, a 2:04.656 for Marc Marquez, despite a one. Pecco Bagnaia, though, with work to do. Lots of you joins. Jack, good morning, gentlemen.
Yeah, good morning. We're in for a real treat, and as you say, today.
Yeah, finally medium, we had the soft, so now while the one that had the medium, that Pecco will recover the Q1.
But given the fact we're at a new venue, with 15 minutes of track time and get a bit more understanding.
Could be a help, and we'll see, because Pecco has the potential to pass to Q.
Regardless of the conditions, but interesting, I was looking at iterations of the chassis on the GP20.
Quickly, but in the end I think that 2025.
I'd see more on what happened to Bagnaia, but it all wrong strategy-wise in terms of the again to practice. There were less than 7 minutes back to the paddock on the scooter than what he did to find a lap for 0.993. Great work by the garage. Onto the second bike. It pretty much off was just turning to putty. It was two in every Grand Prix so far this year.
When Alex Marquez ran away from his crash, not going to put Pecco or his dad in that situation, and got back on that. And he also said that only he and Marc Marquez had been on that particular standing. I don't think they're putting out our own TV production yesterday. And
Friday afternoon finish of the season, which just showed there was the long lap penalty loop, letting out a few riders through. Miller was safely through out of that soft rear rank tyre as the track tyre, and just said it was like he was on ice. 0.716. As we talked about, did we have to say in their defence that I did?
Yeah, we speak to Pecco Bagnaia every week. Generally, he's the most situation Pecco Bagnaia was in, probably the worst. Did that in his view many years. Everyone moved across to the medium, so he wasn't on the racetrack, and the track was theoretically at its fastest. Soft rear tyre wasn't working, and riders were having to go to the medium. By the time they went back out onto the circuit on the wrong back in and make a further change, the upshot of all of that, it's a Ducati heavy Q1 with 3 Ducatis.
Why we've been so desperate to, and this new surface is already delivered, and we're almost there on lap 2 of this Brno circuit. You've got an indication as KTM still not lacking the 54.300 fast, so it has taken Quartararo we saw yesterday. The test that was here a couple of weeks ago when there was 3 or 4 riders. They're expecting today Piero Palamassa, the Michelin.
Data from the test a couple of weeks ago when temporary are with Piero.
Yeah, that's correct. We start the private test, but the the job is the reference tire that we use. After the sprint, based in the tire more, or if we need to switch on the medium. Formation, but will be very important. That is
be running tomorrow for the Grand Prix. Could we see
the sprint? But yes, I won't be in when the grip is good. You have
going to be an interesting dynamic to this weekend.
So just having a look at the sort of tyre the slick tyre. Fabio Quartararo actually did his Brno. A bit of a mix in terms of rear tyres. First into the 53s. The else is out on the soft.
That soft road tyre in FP1 because they go in the session that doesn't count for anything. Let's get that tyre in this very early stage of free practice 2. Of course, our Rins.
Give them grip. That's what we are, fast and competitive. The glass half full yesterday, which was a pretty 15 minutes of dry track time. Chewing up soft rear tyres because didn't use any. Also on a full dry weekend, those riders advanced from Q through to Q2. So
the point I made a moment ago before we jumped on virtual standards. Now there are only 5 riders, of course, yesterday to make Q2 automatic. Di Gianantonio and Fermin Aldig step in that session. As you rightly say, he's perhaps in Buriram, and he took that rather brave hire.
Well, his first day back on circuit for Jorge Martin, to be fair to him, 5th quickest at Asma. He's at pains, though, to say he's not really thinking about outright result. This is a very different factory of Aprilia RSG. Qatar. Marc Marquez then, 5-2 from Marc. Previous all-time lap record, which was going to get blown into the weeds. Chapeau to the Brno organisation, the grip, but it's billiard table smooth. They've ironed out. This should be now the gold standard.
There was an interesting snapshot there with Marc Marquez. He then lost all of that through sectors 2 and 3 track, where it's largely straight lines and heavy brake is a match for the Ducati.
Down out the Pertamina Enduro VR46 score yesterday, where I was fascinated to hear that you've been.
We speak with Pedro about next year. But anyway, for try to find the right weight for next year with
Isn't it people you know quite well?
yes, because we are the Valentino is the boss, but
But I imagine after that coffee and that dinner, he appreciates the talent that Pedro has.
but because need to happen and then now with the dry is very. Grazie a voi, ciao a tutti.
Grazie. The team boss of Pertamina Endurance, who was maybe seeking 53.902. It seems like he is being held to his Red Bull Cating Factory Racing penalty from a financial point of view. Staying put, I'm going to have to say this.
KTM, I have to say, he did think of that while the interview was happening. It's around about time that KTM the podium, but ultimately so far the season before until this weekend, one of two, and Fermi now the gear. Of course, when you the world champion in the process in 2020.
Throw Nakagami, Binder, Miller, Rins, Mia, this MotoGP experience here in the new surface, the advancing MotoGP bikes. That's why record. So a little opening straight away on lap 3, shaved half a second between a couple of laps, so a half behind Mark.
I've got to say, impressed by Quartararo's Jack Miller. Quartararo, like Acosta, out zero as he now finally comes into the pits after medium rear tyre, and Quartararo would be in how competitive every respective levels of Bruno to suggest that Yamaha are a competitive.
Eye-catching, nothing really catch the eye. Over the line Miller goes, that's just ticked 2020, but at the moment that Brad Arm, of course, yesterday was also a lot less stressful and taxing on the boss that Martin's not really worked out much over the lightning run. Martin of 6 laps, injuries in that horrible crash in Qatar, and painstaking rehab for the Martin.
Of the injuries, and of course the Mazzano here this weekend, he did over 60 riding on board a MotoGP bike and then come back and might run into some fatigue. This is going to be Martin, of course, doesn't have the reps as the pace of Marc Marquez.
Says he feels like he's at social media, which I'm sure you do. He has been pounded. A lot of training, stepped it up a couple of months ago. It will be a tough weekend though. It's one you have to go out on track and do it. It's why these riders have to be sort of Bagnaia at the moment. Bed's getting the better in FP1. Just had a second crash as he just got on the power going through and down Bed's went. Thankfully he was uninjured. Well,
yeah, he did say he was slightly wider to acute of an angle in the middle of turns 3 and 4, which led to the crash for. Now look at his teammate back out affected day yesterday. He is automatically, of course, his one previous outing in Qatar we saw him into to see if that old Jorge Martin
was Moto3, Moto2 and MotoGP. He was always in MotoGP. So Antonio is certainly enjoying life better in the dry. He's currently 5th fastest. Great job by since the San Marino Grand Prix. What, 24.201? That's the KTM test team, but in here, the top 6, let alone be in it.
Who also made Q2 yesterday. In 7th place at the moment, of course, 3 kilos lighter, not the which ruled him out of the German Grand Prix last week. KTM, and safe for 2020 winner 7. It's only Binder who's uncompetitive relative.
Not really. The dream return back in 2020 when he won that Grand Prix in the dry as well. Of course, in Buriram. Still marks FP2 session, which has been that are offered by this new Brno circuit, and there were still damp patches scattered. Full attack and gung-ho attacking this Brno circuit.
On the soft, of course, it's generally been situations like this where you're so limited in who can run all the different tyre combinations. 30 minutes to play with. Marc Marquez is despite
by Digia. Yes, moving him up into second. Yamaha, Honda and Aprilia inside the top 5, all to spoil it. He won't care because he's up 6 with a 1:54.0. There's the 26-year-old Italian was right here in Brno back in 2018. A load of Brno podiums in the small.
Yeah, you are naturally going to see some track. New Brno surface is very grippy, which will have washed whatever rubber there was, and it will have been very little. As riders throw some new tyres in the latter, get himself into the 153s with this.
It's going to make it interesting in the sprint and the Grand. The most laps on slick rubber yesterday. Laps in Brno going in, pointing out yesterday as it so often is, but testing a bit of a warm-up exercise. Full distance Czech Grand Prix over 20. So that new medium rear tyre has come.
He is now going to complete this session on the of changing that.
This feels like with a dress rehearsal for qualifying. This feels like on a soft tyre. Slick tyres were used at all yesterday, so they've been Quartararo and co.
Yeah, looking medium. So too is Augusto Fernandez. Jack just pitted.
So it looks like we get sessions yesterday. It looks like Bro and Acosta on that soft rear. We're obviously on this so far for Acosta, fourth fastest.
The entire session on the soft rear tyre, so to need that medium rear for the race itself of tyres, which is why he's been dropped down to the end of this session. Whether it's the medium or the soft,
conditions today around sort of mid-20s, 24 so far. Hotter tomorrow though, according to the weather forecast. My weather app was saying no rain at all, and Fabio was at 154.28. Medium rear tyre on Jack Miller's Pramac Yamaha, 3.319.
Enjoying, I guess from his point of view, if the relief sprints to a nearby scooter not made it, he would have also been in that heavy important. The more you look at it with the top 10 as it.
Alex has the service road lap record, does out on that fresh medium rear, him close to 2/10 ahead of Miller. Paul Espargaro 13th at the moment. Follow the former MotoGP world champion. Brilliant work by the Spaniard, of course. Replay go in that very wet Q2 session.
Not only in 5th place, but the top KTM as the top Yamaha. That honour goes to leaderboard too much, although Davide Tardozzi clearly was. Shape Bagnaya's in around half an hour's time.
Watch at times, hasn't it? Watching the in the factory Ducati garage. Hill for P3 right now here this weekend in Brno.
He did over the course of the entire session, 12 laps to the majority of the field in that very practice 2 session.
It's continue his iron grip on this 93, who in the upcoming pole position 74. Good session that as far as days ago when he fluffed his lines. Jack Miller it is though that splits the as Marc Marquez is concerned. His teammate who
limiting the damage last weekend given his injured finger.
Yeah, we've got a bit of a revised and revamped lineup once again here this weekend in Brno. Of our entry list this weekend, only 12 riders in MotoGP have previously raced in the Premier Class here in the Czech Republic. Johan Zarco, Fabio Quartararo, Taka Nakagami. Let's start off with some housekeeping. He's in to replace the injured Somkiat Jantra at LCR Honda. Brad Binder, of course, memorably won his first Grand Prix here back in 2020. Jack Miller, Alex Rins, Joan Mir, Paul Espargaro, who you've just seen on screens there now. He's in for the absent Maverick Vinales. Of course, he suffered a fracture in his left shoulder after a nasty Q2 crash last weekend. Also in the previous MotoGP club here in Brno are Pecco Bagnaia, Miguel Oliveira and Alex and Marc Marquez.
Not that Pecco Bagnaia was riding around here for long. The last time he raced here in 2020, his second visit to Brno when he broke his leg. So Pecco Bagnaia will be looking to banish any particular demons he has from this Brno circuit, which of course has been resurfaced since we last raced here. And by all accounts, from the riders that tested here in MotoGP and in Moto2 a couple of weeks ago, wonderful levels of grip being brought from this new resurfaced track. Pecco Bagnaia said yesterday he's expecting once we get some dry running, which might not be until tomorrow, we'll wait and see how the weather evolves through the day, that we could have lap times as much as 4 seconds faster than the last time MotoGP came here.
Luca Marini was one of a small bunch of riders that did come to test here recently. Alex Rins was here, so too was Miguel Oliveira. Bearing in mind Luca Marini had been out of action after his big Suzuka 8-hour testing crash for a period of time. He wasn't exactly pushing the envelope on his return to the RC213V, was Marini, but I'm told by some Honda sources that Luca was 2 seconds inside of Marc Marquez's pole position record. So we're looking at laps in the 152s straight away. Sadly, I don't think we're going to see those any stage this morning as the rain has disrupted proceedings. Just to cover off one other very important piece of